Hello, welcome to another edition of Talking Sports and Fitness with Zeke. I'm Zeke, sometimes known as Mike Zielinski. My guest today is Doug Dahms, head football coach at Wilson High School. Tremendously successful program. Doug, you've had great success there. Welcome.
Good to be here. My success is not my success, it's our success. Let me straighten that out right off the bat.
Okay,
right?
And let me straighten this out. We're not going to talk football in this show. That's for part two. And what I find interesting about you, Doug, not to stereotype football coaches, because, I mean, that's a calling, that's a passion, that's a lot of work and focus. And many high school football coaches are also excellent teachers. But you seem to be a real Renaissance man. Pardon me reading a few notes for a second, but you're just not teaching driver ed. You not only teach AP Biology, Honors Biology, and AP Environmental Science, but you design the programs. You also lead the Wallops Island Marine Science Consortium field trip to Virginia each year. You're the director of the Jamaica Marine Studies field trip to St. Ann's Bay, Jamaica. Not bad gigs there, by the way. Besides being the head football coach, you're also the head boys and girls indoor track coach and outdoor track coach for both boys and girls. And you also run the Wilson High School Ski Club. Do you sleep?
Not a lot. I mean, people kid me about that all the time, but I basically sleep 4 to 5 hours a night, whether I need it or not. I wake up, I go to bed around 11:30, and I'm up at 3:30, 4 o'clock every morning.
How do you must compartmentalize pretty much, right? Because especially now, football isn't just August, it's almost like a year-round sport. So how do you balance everything? I wear a lot of hats, as you can tell. Yeah.
And, you know, we always kid I'm going to get one made because I just turn it, because first question will be about football, then the next question's track, then the next question's Jamaica, then the next question's Wallops, then I'm back to AP Bio. So, as my wife says, I multitask well, which they claim men don't do well, but obviously I do, or I wouldn't be able to handle all those things. But on top of that, don't get me wrong, I've got an excellent staff in football, I've got an excellent staff in track. My wife is a tremendous supporter and helps me a lot, especially in the Jamaica trip itself. So, you know, there's a lot of people coming into the mix.
Do you have a favorite of all the things you do, or do you have a passion for all of them?
Whatever the time is.
Now, we were chatting a little bit before we went on air. You are very unique, I think, as a football coach, and you kind of said, and you know a lot of coaches, there's probably one other guy that might have as many interests as you. What other coaches, when they know you're involved with so much, football coaches, do they say, what are you, nuts? Or
I get that a lot, and I get, how can you possibly do it?
Yeah.
And I think, as I said, it helps that I've got a tremendous support group all the way around.
Yeah.
To tell you the truth, I get bored, I think, if I was only doing one thing. I've always done that. I played 3 sports in college and maintained, a lot of activities there, and I don't know, I enjoy it. You know, when I was hired as a head football coach, they talked to me about dropping programs, and I said, yeah, but who's going to do the program? I mean, I'm not being egotistic about that. I just know I built these programs to where they are, and they're running. You know, who's going to do it? So.
Let me ask you, like, what's the difference? There's a lot of difference between, I think, coaching track and field and football, I would think, because football is a team sport. Track and field, even though there's team standings, is an individual sport. What's your take on the differences? Do you have to have a different personality, or?
I do. I do.
You can't talk to a girl high jumper the same as a linebacker, right?
You do to some degree.
Yeah.
I treat them all as athletes. I don't treat them as girls. I don't treat them as boys. I treat them as athletes. But it's different. And I learned this a long time ago, that in football, you spend a lot of time getting them really cranked and really pumped, and you get the adrenaline up there and your pregame speeches and everything and the rah-rah. And in track, that doesn't work, because some athletes, they get so pumped up that they can't compete.
Yeah.
You know, we call it like a relaxed anxiety they have to have. They got to be calm. And it took me a few years to realize that some athletes like to kid around before an event, because that relaxes them. And coming from a football mentality, it took a while, but I learned.
Well, it's interesting because because in track, a lot of people, there's a boys coach and there's a girls coach. You're doing both indoor and outdoor. It just amazes me how you can do all this. And there is some correlation, obviously, with track and football because you know who all the fast kids in school are. That helps, right?
It does, and it's what always amazes me is the number of schools where the football coach doesn't allow their athletes to participate in track, which makes absolutely no sense to me.
Yeah.
I mean,
I can see maybe baseball because there is no correlation,
well,
but track there is.
You know, I mean, we push our kids play other sports.
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah.
You know, I don't care what you're doing, play other sports. But if you're not playing another sport, then run track in the spring.
Right.
Because what are we going to do? We're going to make you quicker. We're going to make you more explosive. We're going to make you faster. Well, gee, those aren't very good attributes for a football player.
And also the weight guys, they're getting stronger, and then there's
And they're
athletic
working their
technique to
feet.
that.
They're working with their feet all the time. Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. A
You
lot
know,
of agility.
it was interesting just last week as we taped. Randall Cunningham, who obviously was a great quarterback for a number of years with the Eagles and later with the Vikings, his daughter, who he coaches, just made the Olympic team in high jump.
Yeah,
and
well,
he
she
was a
was-
high jumper. Very
Well, she
good
was
one.
world champion.
Yeah.
And then I guess she got second in the Olympic trials. And I didn't see whether his son made it or not, but his son's in the hunt to make the Olympic team in
Yeah, I
high
don't know
jump
if
as
you,
well.
I know he's on. It's interesting because
I think he was second or third at NCAAs, but you know.
It was interesting that he chose track at USC. I believe he's at USC because
Yeah.
I saw a show on Randall where the kid was in high school then, and he was an outstanding high school football player. And a quarterback, and I covered Randall with the Eagles. He reminded me of a young
Right,
Randall, really.
right.
What about the ski club? I mean, that's another sports-related thing. What do you do with the ski club?
We don't do a whole lot. I mean, it's basically we run 1 or 2 trips to Vermont in the winter time. 3 or 4 day week. Over long weekends. Usually Lincoln's birthday,
Yeah.
President's weekend, and then the one in January, whatever the heck that is.
Are you? Do you give them skiing techniques?
If they want.
And you obviously are an avid skier.
Yeah, there's some years that the kids are, if we take, inevitably there's some kids that are beginners. We'll get anywhere from beginners to really advanced. And the kids that are beginners, if they want, I don't force them to, but I'll say, hey, if you want to ski with me, I'll give you a couple of pointers, get you started. And likewise with the kids that are very good skiers, a lot of that is just the fact that they're young and agile and they don't really understand the fundamentals of the sport. But we used to have races on Monday every year at the end of our ski trip.
Okay.
Every Monday we'd have the hill set up a little race course, and then it wouldn't be hard, but then we'd
You have
race.
to have the competition, right?
Well,
Yeah.
sure, and then and every year nobody would beat me. I would always win. All right, and then we got some kids like, I don't know if you remember Jamie Sands and Dustin Sands, very, very
They played
good.
baseball with my one son.
Sure,
Yeah,
very,
yeah.
very good skiers. And Dustin was on Blue Mountains racing team.
So they beat
And
you?
No, I beat him by
Oh, really?
I beat Dustin by 1/100th of a second.
Wow, and how old were you at the time?
Probably late 40s.
All right,
And
yeah.
at that point, I said, well, I think maybe we'll stop the races because somebody's going to beat me. And then I won't be able to retire undefeated.
That's funny.
But it was fun.
I think another interesting aspect of you is the fact that you're a science teacher and a football coach, which is unusual in itself. And plus, like, you're almost, you design the courses. Is there anything analytically, from a scientific mind that helps you with your playbook, or?
Probably, that's one of those, I look at things very holistically, and I think I'd probably end up doing that in football, so that I'm not just looking at what's going to happen at this position or whatever. I'm looking at the whole picture on every play, looking at how it's going to affect special teams, how our offense is going to mix.
Which is what
No,
a head coach should be
it's-
doing,
it's-
more than a position coach.
Yeah, I am not. I do not coach any position.
Yeah. yeah.
That's a decision I made when I became head coach, that I was going to let my coaches coach, and I'll just guide.
But you must have, you probably really enjoyed the Big 33 game, which is where all the all-stars from Pennsylvania play. You played, what, Ohio this year again?
We played Maryland.
Oh, Maryland, I'm sorry.
Maryland, yeah.
But you were the D coordinator. You went back to your old days, right?
Went
Yeah.
back to the
How
roots.
much fun was that?
It was a lot of fun. The hardest part about that was, number one, you've got terrific athletes.
Yeah.
I mean, at Big 33, the athletes, they're going to Pitt, they're going to Penn State, they're going to Michigan. I mean, you're dealing with really phenomenal athletes. Getting them on the same page, getting all the coaches on the same page, because they're all coming from different, offenses, defenses. But it was a lot of fun. And we pretty much dominated defensively. So we threw some wrinkles in there, pushed the rules a little bit, stayed within them, but,
Yeah. Well, all-star games always have some restrictions.
there's
Of
so
course, you
many
had Ike
restrictions.
Schauner, who you're relaying the signals to, your star linebacker at Wilson. We only have a couple of minutes left, but I did mention them. So tell us a little bit about the Wallops Island Marine Science Consortium field trip and also the Jamaica Marine Studies field trip. What are you doing with the kids there?
Well, Wallops Island is open to the students I have in class. It's only open to the students I have in class for my AP classes. And basically that's a mid-Atlantic coastal marine ecology trip where we go down there and we get up at 5 o'clock every morning and go out birding. All right, so they love that part. Actually, they really do after a while. They really do. Some of them really get into it. And then we have a lab, and we have a lecture, and then we'll have lunch, and then we'll have another lab, another lecture, and then we'll have dinner and have another lecture. So
any of your football players do that?
A couple, not a lot.
Yeah.
We'll have 2 or 3 every year. So that's, that's a lot of fun. That's a 5-day trip. We run that Friday through a Tuesday, somewhere in April usually. But the Jamaica trip I started back in 1997 and started it strictly as a marine biology trip. I teach 9 days of intensive marine biology down there. They have to collect over 120 different species of organisms, have to identify them, know their ecology of them, and we have a big test at the end of the week. So they really have to know them. That's a little overwhelming at first. But what has happened is there's an infirmary, which is in Jamaica, an infirmary is a poorhouse for people that have health problems. They're either mentally or physically infirmed. So they're not very nice places. All right. But there's one about a quarter mile from where we stay. We stay in a little tiny fishing village called Priory, in a little tiny hotel that's probably a quarter, maybe a half a star. No air conditioning, no TV, but it's basic. It's what you need. Right on the beach. I mean, we eat breakfast 20 feet from the beach. That's where we eat all our meals.
Well, that's nice.
Right. So, but the infirmary is about a quarter mile away, and my wife Susie and myself kind of befriended 2 paraplegics in the infirmary who sold little braided bracelets, to help pay their family, help fund their family, and so we decided this would be a good experience to expose the kids to this poverty. So the first year we went up there, and with 24 students, and the place reeked of urine. It was not clean. I mean, we only had a minimal staff, and it was bad. So we went up there, and Susie and I are talking to Roland, our friend up there, and the 24 students are behind us. Now, we hadn't seen him for a year, so we're talking, and I look around, and these students are out all over this huge, it's just a big dorm type room, and they're all out on these beds sitting and talking with all these patients that are not clean, that smell and everything. And it was like, whoa, what is this? So they really opened our eyes to the humanitarian part of it. And since then, it has exploded. We take donations. We get donations from the community, from some of the industries, et cetera. We have taken down over the years about 40 laptops, which is huge, because the patients in the infirmary have no contact with the outside world.
Wow.
And initially they weren't, because it's a poorhouse, they weren't allowed to have anything. But we eventually started taking more and more stuff. We take about 5,000 pounds of materials down every year.
Boy, what an intrinsic satisfaction you must feel.
And
that probably beats winning a district title.
I'll tell you, well, I don't know if I'd say that, but the kids just come back so changed. Yeah. And I get from the parents, they say, like I have one student who was like, a model student, one of the best kids, fantastic kid. We came back, and after we came back, we were back a couple of weeks, I ran to her parents, and they said, she is so different now. I'm thinking, what the heck happened? And, just the experience of that abject poverty, and they don't know it, and they just... so that has really expanded. The humanitarian aspect of that has really expanded, and now we've expanded that a little further into education. We take 325 sets of educational supplies down every year for the kids up in the hills. And, the little kids come out of the woodwork and go nuts over that stuff. So, for our kids, what a humanitarian opportunity.
Wow. I wish we had more time, but I just want to, in closing, applaud you. Whether it's athletics, humanitarian aspects, or educational, you enhance lives, and I applaud you again. And for now, this is Zeke saying goodbye.
These community stories are made possible in part by BCTV, Susie Ray Design, Queen City Family Restaurant, Lamar Advertising, Heidelberg Family Restaurant, Reading Air, Lions and Hole, Peanut Bar, and Kutztown University.